Wow, this book, Stop Autism Now, by Bruce Fife. We're in for a deep dive today. It's fascinating stuff.
Definitely lots to unpack. I'm ready to dig into the science behind some of these claims.
Right off the bat, Fife doesn't hold back. He claims there might actually be a cure for autism. He uses the story of this young boy, David, who's really struggling to communicate and interact to kind of highlight, I guess, how desperate parents are for any kind of answer.
Yeah, and the word cure obviously carries a lot of weight. It's a really loaded term. But I think what Fife is trying to do is get at those root causes of autism and explore options that, maybe haven't been fully considered before.
And one of the most controversial topics he jumps right into is the vaccine debate. Fife spends a good chunk of the book talking about Dr. Andrew Wakefield and that whole study on the MMR vaccine, the one that was eventually retracted.
Right, right.
But Fife really highlights those cases of children who, at least as he describes it, regressed into autism-like symptoms after they got the vaccine.
Yeah, and, it's crucial to acknowledge those parental concerns, especially given how heated this debate has been. But it's also essential to emphasize that the overall scientific consensus hasn't changed, all those large-scale studies. They haven't found a causal link between the MMR vaccine and autism.
And Fife does seem to acknowledge that, at least to some extent, but it's like he's more interested in looking at a wider range of potential causes. Like, he dives deep into this connection between gut health and autism. Have you ever heard of leaky gut?
I have.
So he's suggesting that toxins can actually leak from the intestines into the bloodstream and mess with brain function.
And that's where things get really interesting. Fife seems to be building this case that several factors, gut issues, food sensitivities, exposure to toxins even, could all be contributing to this thing called neuroinflammation, basically chronic inflammation in the brain. And he suggests that this inflammation might be a major player in autism.
So we're seeing this pattern of potential triggers leading to neuroinflammation, but then Fife throws us a curveball. Coconut oil. He seems to think it's got huge therapeutic potential for autism. He even tells this story about a kid named Homer who, according to Fife, improved significantly after switching to a gluten and casein-free diet that was also high in coconut oil.
Right, and the thing with coconut oil is how the body breaks down those medium-chain triglycerides, the MCTs, into ketones.
And ketones are so important because
Ketones can actually act as fuel for the brain. It's pretty fascinating. We've seen some success with the ketogenic diet in treating epilepsy. That diet's also very low carb, high fat, all about those ketones. It seems like Fife might be drawing a connection between those potential benefits for brain health in epilepsy and applying that to autism.
So is he saying coconut oil is some miracle cure because of these ketones?
Not quite. While he's definitely a fan of coconut oil, even Fife admits that we need more research. It's vital to be cautiously optimistic with claims like this. Anecdotal evidence is one thing, but we need solid science to back it up.
Absolutely. It's so easy to get caught up in the hope of a breakthrough, but we have to let science guide us. And speaking of science, Fife throws a ton of info at you in this book. Gut flora, heavy metals, food allergies, ketones. It's a lot to take in, even for someone just casually reading about this stuff.
Oh, I bet.
I can only imagine what it must be like for parents trying to sort through it all while also caring for a child with autism.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot to process, especially for parents already navigating the challenges of autism. And it's crucial to remember that every child is different. What works for one might not work for another. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
So we've been talking about potential triggers, but what about solutions? Does Fife offer any advice for parents who are concerned?
He does, yeah. One of his big recommendations is dietary changes. He's really into this coconut ketogenic diet, which we touched on earlier. It's all about boosting ketone production, potentially helping brain function.
He even includes recipes. But honestly, just reading through them, it seems super intense, especially for families with picky eaters,
You're telling me. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all thing. Fife even says himself, it's crucial to work with healthcare providers to figure out if this kind of diet is even right for the child.
Makes sense.
He also talks about supplements, things like probiotics for gut health and omega-3 fatty acids for their anti-inflammatory effects.
So more of a multi-pronged approach.
Exactly, addressing those potential triggers from different angles.
Okay, I gotta ask about something that threw me for a loop in this book. Cholesterol. Fife calls it the ultimate brain food. I always thought cholesterol was like the enemy.
Yeah, it's a common misconception.
Yeah.
Fife's argument is that cholesterol is actually vital for brain development. Think about it. The brain's the most cholesterol-rich organ we've got. He even points to this genetic disorder, Smith-Lemli-Opitz syndrome, where people can't produce enough cholesterol and they often show autistic-like symptoms.
So wait, is he saying we should all be downing cheeseburgers?
Not quite. He's more about a balanced approach. Healthy fats, avocados, eggs, and yeah, even coconut oil in the diet. And he's not afraid of saturated fat either. Thinks it's gotten a bad rap.
That's wild, because for so long we've been told to avoid saturated fat like the plague.
Right. But Fife challenges that. He cites research suggesting saturated fat might not be the heart disease villain we thought it was. He thinks it's important for cells to work right, and even for a healthy immune system.
It really makes you rethink all those low-fat diets we've been pushed towards, huh?
Totally. Fife's whole thing is questioning assumptions, looking at the evidence with a fresh perspective.
And one thing he seems super passionate about is how important nutrition is during pregnancy and those early years of childhood.
Absolutely. He argues that what a mother eats can massively impact the baby's brain development. He's all about breastfeeding, even suggests adding coconut oil to the mother's diet while she's nursing.
So setting the stage early on.
Exactly. And then continues through childhood. Fife's a big advocate for ditching processed foods, encouraging those healthy eating habits from the get-go. Basically, laying a good foundation for optimal brain development.
What about sugar? Everyone's got an opinion on sugar these days.
Fife's stance is crystal clear. Avoid it as much as you can, especially for kids. He argues that our modern diets are drowning in sugar, and that this overconsumption can lead to a whole bunch of problems, inflammation, even impacting brain health. He even compares sugar to a drug.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, it is, but he backs it up. He talks about how addictive sugar can be, how it throws off the body's balance. He's not a fan of artificial sweeteners either, thinks they could be just as bad.
So sticking to whole foods as unprocessed as possible.
Exactly. Real food, as close to nature as you can get it. That's the Fife philosophy.
We've talked diet, nutrition, but Fife also dives into early intervention for kids diagnosed with autism.
Yeah, he's all about tackling those potential triggers.
Yeah.
ASAP. He talks about how adaptable the brain is, especially in young kids, and how early intervention can shape its development, maybe even lessen the impacts of autism.
So not that we can necessarily cure it, but we can give these kids the best shot at thriving.
Exactly. It's about giving them the tools and support they need to reach their full potential. And that support often needs to go beyond just the child, too. Fife talks about how vital community is, encourages parents to connect with others going through similar things.
Makes sense. Raising a child with autism can feel isolating. Having a support network could make a world of difference.
Totally. Sharing what they know, giving encouragement, reminding each other they're not alone.
I gotta admit, I was surprised how much emphasis Fife puts on cholesterol and saturated fat for brain health. It's like everything we've been told for decades is wrong.
It's true. Fife's views definitely shake things up.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to go against the grain, get people questioning what they think they know. But that's also what makes his work so interesting.
He's not afraid to stir the pot. But what I like is he's not just throwing out wild ideas to be controversial. He's got research to back him up, gives real advice on using these principles in everyday life.
Absolutely. He's not just talking theory. He's offering solutions. And yes, some of his recommendations might seem tough at first, but he stresses finding what works best for each child, each family.
It's like he's encouraging parents to really take charge, trust their gut when it comes to their kids' health.
Definitely. Empowerment's a big part of his message. He wants parents to feel like they've got the knowledge, the tools to make the best choices.
And one of those tools he talked about is that gluten-free, casein-free diet. We touched on it earlier, but it seems pretty central to his approach.
It is, yeah. Fife's suggestion is that some kids with autism, they might have sensitivities to gluten, casein, those proteins in wheat and milk.
Right.
And he argues those proteins could be contributing to gut problems, maybe even making behavioral symptoms worse for some kids.
He even compares them to opioids at one point, like they might have a similar effect on the brain. That's a pretty big statement.
It is, and it's worth noting the research on this is still kind of up in the air. Some parents say they've seen positive changes, going gluten-free, casein-free, but the science is mixed.
So not a guaranteed fix, but maybe worth looking into for some families.
Exactly. Like a lot of things with autism, it often comes down to trying different things, seeing what clicks for that individual child.
That seems to be a big theme throughout the book, this idea of personalized medicine, right? Recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all with autism.
Absolutely. Fife's a big advocate for working closely with healthcare providers who get it, who get autism, who are open to exploring different options.
He also talks about lifestyle stuff, things like managing stress, spending time in nature.
Right, he's got this holistic view, recognizing that our physical health, our mental well-being, it's all connected. And he really encourages parents to prioritize self-care, too. Because raising a child with autism, it's demanding. It takes a toll.
For sure. It seems like he's trying to provide a roadmap for parents, help them navigate what can feel like an overwhelming journey.
He is, and some of his ideas might seem out there, but you can tell he cares. He's passionate about helping these kids thrive.
Well, we've covered a ton of ground today with Stop Autism Now. Fascinating stuff, eye-opening for sure, and yeah, maybe a little overwhelming at times. What are some key takeaways you hope listeners will walk away with?
Honestly, I hope that feel a sense of hope. Autism is complex, no doubt, but there are things parents can do, things that can make a real difference in their child's life.
It's about being informed, being an advocate, building that support system.
Exactly, and never underestimating the power of love, patience, believing in their child. That's huge.
Yeah, beautifully said. If there's one thing this deep dive makes clear, it's that autism is multifaceted. Genetics, environment, it all seems to play a role. So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. Given how complex autism is, how intertwined it might be with environmental factors, could our modern lifestyle be contributing to those rising rates we're seeing? Processed foods, toxins everywhere, constant stress. It's a question worth pondering as we continue to learn more about this often baffling condition. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep learning.
Love what you're hearing? Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share it with others. Your support fuels the journey for more awesome content.